without more ado, I'll hand over to Bodhinaya. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Padmasaki. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So I'm going to I've got my talk partly on my phone and partly on a printout. So I've added bits to it, and obviously the workshop will follow my brief intro. So bear with me. I'm not I'm not reading some texts or doing other things whilst I'm leading tonight. But it's just the way it's worked for me, I'm afraid, with not having a printer at home. So yeah, so tonight I'll do a little talk at the beginning, 10, maybe a bit longer, 10 minutes, and then we're going to do an activity, and then I'll say a little bit more, and I've got another 2 activities planned if there's time. So yeah, so the imagination's a really big part of my practice. So that's kind of what I'll be bringing tonight. And yeah, and the imagination's just been one of the ways I've really developed my practice as a Buddhist. And in some ways tonight's a little bit of an experiment for me. I haven't really brought as much of my imagination as I'd wanted to some of the talks and workshops that I've done. So yeah, so I'm really pleased I'm doing this, but also a little tentative as well. So yes, so this is the second part of our series on Buddhist ethics. Kusala Devi last week introduced the first precept on loving kindness. And tonight we're looking at the second precept, which is generosity. And of course, what do I mean by that? Well, it's actually not taking the none given in its sort of negative form, although tonight I'll be very much focusing on its positive, its counterpart, which is with open-handed generosity, I purify my body. So I'm really fascinated with this notion of the open-handedness of generosity, which is something I'd really like us to explore tonight, which we'll be doing later on. So the intent here, when we think about generosity, is not to take, it's to give. And Sangha suggests that our actual natural tendency is actually not to give, but to take. So in a sense, when we focus on generosity, it's very much trying to focus on the positive form, if you like, of some of our natural tendencies. And I suppose the natural tendency, certainly for me, I'm often caught with my thoughts, particularly when I'm meeting friends. There's this, sometimes I catch this low background noise, which sort of goes something like this: me, 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 me. You know, what am I going to get from this? And it's very daunting when I catch it. And I suspect it's there a lot of the time, but I'm just not attuned to it. And, you know, what am I going to get from this relationship? What am I going to get from this interaction? This me, 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 that's sort of going on all the time. And of course, generosity is potentially sort of an antidote to that. It's a moving towards my self-obsession, my preoccupation with myself, this propensity I have for navel gazing, and sort of moving myself towards thinking about others. And in some ways, generosity is very much propelling ourselves away from this self-obsession and moving towards others. So Sangha says, we might struggle to meditate, we might struggle with Dharma study, but actually we can all give. And in a sense, giving is quite simple. And I think I particularly am fond of generosity. I'm fond of all the precepts because of their practical element. I tend to be quite a practical person by nature. So I really like the simplicity of the precepts, if you like. They're a clear action. And certainly generosity is a clear intent. There's a movement away from myself towards others. So yes, and in some ways our relationship with generosity is quite a good measure of our spiritual practice. And and in a sense, we're not going to make a lot of progress spiritually if we don't have that propensity or that kind of willingness or movement towards giving in all its different forms, which I'll explore later tonight. So giving is a measure potentially of our spiritual development, because giving helps us to open our hearts. It helps us to move away from ourselves, moving towards others. Yeah, it opens us up. And I'm just going to cite a poem, actually. It's by Walt Whitman that Bhante Sangha talks about in his book, The 10 Pillars, which is about the 10 precepts that order members take when they're ordained. And I'm very struck, actually, by the 10 pillars. I remember Padmavajra, who's a very senior order member, is often asked which of Bhante's books, which of Sangharakshita's books would the book he would recommend. And he often says the 10 pillars. And I'm very struck by that. Of all the books Sangharakshita's written, it's the 10 pillars that Padmavajra recommends us to read over and over again. So in the 10 pillars, Sangharakshita uses the poem by Walt Whitman. It's from the Song of Myself, where he talks about when he gives himself. And in some ways, that's the spirit of the Bodhisattva ideal, this giving of our whole self. I'm just going to move towards my hard copy now. So, giving of ourselves, giving what we have, giving everything. And in a sense, generosity is a form of surrender. It's a sort of letting go of our preoccupation with ourselves, of our sense of ego. And Sangharakshita talks very simply about giving. He talks about just the simple act of putting your hand in your pocket and giving, or putting your hand in your bag or in your purse or your man bag. Just a simple act of just giving. In some ways, it doesn't require a lot of thought or a lot of thinking. It's sort of a simple act. And of course, generosity is a form of love. And when we fully love, then we give of ourselves. There is no ownership. We give freely. We give what we have, and we move away from our sense of ownership, our sense of preoccupation. So in a sense, just as I said, the Bodhisattva gives of themselves, if you like, they are the gift. And they cannot be separated from the gift and the giver any more than, say, the dancer can be separated from the dance. So I thought we'd do a little activity now. And I just want us to sort of sit or stand wherever we are, just with our hand or hands just open, and just having a sense of that, that gesture, and just noticing any experience, any sensations, any thoughts or feelings that come from that gesture, that open-handed position. And what I want us to do now is I want us to sort of kind of curl up our hands and then move them towards ourselves, contracting, and just noticing what happens in your body when you do that. And again, now opening your hands and noticing whatever's there in that gesture. And then clenching the fists again and bringing them to the body. Noticing whatever happens. And let's just repeat these two gestures, this opening and moving towards. Just repeat that in your own time. Open-handedness, and if you like, the clinging that perhaps might come from a clenched fist or a clenched hand. And what I'd quite like you to do is really exaggerate that movement, that kind of opening and closing. Opening and closing. And just sort of keep making it bigger in your own time. Just noticing what happens. So opening the hands and clenching the fists and drawing the fists in. Again, exaggerating as much as you can. And just coming to a pause. And at this point, it'd be, if you'd like to just spend a moment just reflecting on that experience and just noticing whatever's there, whatever is there. And I'd be good if people would be willing to share something of that experience that you've had. If Gareth could potentially unmute people. That's possible.
You'll be able to unmute yourselves.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Thanks, Gareth. So yeah, so if someone would like to start off just sharing anything in that experience that makes you curious or noticing something that wasn't there before. Progress. Okay, some lovely ideas there, which is sort of really sort of capturing my imagination. So so when we give, when we're generous, we're sharing. And it helps to break down this sort of separation that we can have between self and other. So the open-handed gesture, certainly for me, is the opposite of clinging, of holding, of contracting, and about expansion, as we've heard from some of people's sort of experience, that, you know, the opening is sort of potentially full of a lot more possibility. I certainly can feel this sometimes with money, and you know, sometimes I can really feel myself sort of holding on to my wealth, and it can feel quite sticky and uncomfortable. And when I decide to give money, I can feel quite a lot of relief, actually. It almost feels like an antidote to the kind of clinging and the contraction that I often can feel when it comes to money. You know, I'm counting my money and making sure, you know, I've got enough. And I find that can be quite a painful experience and very liberating when I decide to give something away. And in a sense, it sort of releases some energy. When I give money away, not only do I feel a sense of relief, it just seems to sort of generate just some energy and a movement towards the world. So I'm going to talk a little bit about different types of generosity. So giving, or dana as it's sometimes called, you know, it's a sort of basic Buddhist virtue. And Sangha talks about how the feeling of wanting to give or share is the first manifestation in the spiritual life of a decrease in craving or clinging. So it can become quite a helpful measure, if you like, of our progress, if I'm using that kind of language. So obviously there's the giving of dana in terms of material things or money, but there's also the giving of time, the giving of energy, the giving of our thoughts. And time is precious, so when we give time to friends and loved ones or even strangers, that is also an act of generosity. And in a similar vein, when we share our talents and our skills, you know, so others can benefit from them, that is also an act of generosity. And there's also the sharing of our knowledge and the sharing of culture. I was very struck when I was preparing for this talk how the sort of priestly caste in Hinduism, you know, monopolized knowledge in India by not sharing their knowledge with some of the lower castes, and how that perpetuated ignorance. And I was very struck by that in the light of, you know, our talk we had a few weeks ago by an Indian order member, and you know, they started to share some of the situation there, but certainly in the context of our current age, with thinking around issues of sort of Black Lives Matters and things of this kind. Sharing of our knowledge, sharing what we have, again, is a form of generosity. And also Sangha talks about the sharing of fearlessness. I was very struck by this, and how sometimes when we're with people who are confident, it can really instill in us a real sense of fearlessness when we might be feeling fearful. So, you know, we can give the gift of fearlessness, you know, when we're among our friends and family, you know, people who might be feeling anxious or insecure, you know, we can instill to some extent some confidence in them. And I was very struck by that. Reassuring others by our presence is very highly valued in Buddhism. I was also thinking very much also about gratitude, which we're going to explore a little bit tonight too. And Sangha talks about when we feel gratitude, it's because in some ways we've had our need met. Not a want, you know, real gratitude is felt when we have a need met, when we're able to respond, if you like, to a need in someone else's. And I was very much thinking about my earlier life in preparing for this talk, when I remember when I was at school, which was quite a challenge for me. And I remember on one occasion, it was one of my, I think it was my maths teacher. He said to me, he says, "You can do this. You can do this." And it had such a profound effect on me because I didn't have a lot of confidence around maths. I did lack a lot of self-confidence. I had a lot of self-doubt. But his belief in me, it kind of instilled, if you like, this inner belief that I could do something. And even now, 45 years later, I still feel this real sense of gratitude towards him. And also I feel a little bit of grief as well that I wasn't able to express it. So again, real gratitude comes when we have a need met. So what we're going to do now, we're going to do another a little activity, slightly different to the first one. So if you could just sort of close your eyes for a moment. And I want you just to imagine somebody you would like to give a gift to. It might be someone you felt eternally grateful for. Might be someone from your past or your present. Someone who gave you a gift, perhaps, and now you would like to express in return your own gratitude. So just have a sense of them. Have a sense of how they might look, or a feeling that you associate with them. You might even have a sense of their voice. And just for a moment, imagine in your hand a gift. You may not know what kind of gift it is. Just have a sense of how that gift might feel, how heavy it is, how light. You might have a sense of whether it's presented in a particular way or wrapped up. And just for a moment, imagine giving that gift to that person. Noticing their response to your gift. And noticing your response. What does it feel like to be able to give this gift? Noticing any changes in your body, any sensations in your body, any feelings or thoughts. Just attending to whatever's there in this act of generosity. And just for a moment now, opening your eyes. And what I'm going to suggest you do is on the piece of paper and that you've all brought, I just want you to write about that experience. What was it like to give that gift? And when you're writing, I want to encourage you, we're only going to write for 2 or 3 minutes. I want to encourage you to keep the pen moving. And again, don't worry about spelling or punctuation. Just allow your pen to move. Your pen is a friend. Your pen might be able to reveal to you more in your experience than you're already aware of. Don't think too hard, just keep the pen moving. What was it like to give this gift? Okay, so just coming to a natural pause and just spend a moment just rereading what you've written, just noticing anything that surprises you or something that raises your awareness or a discovery. And again, if you'd like to share something, you don't have to read out what you've written, but something in your writing that you'd like to share. And of course, there's something when you do share what you've written, that's also an act of generosity, because there's an opportunity for someone else to connect with something in your experience that might help resonate with someone else's.
I'll share mine.
So that's about it for tonight. We've got a couple of things going on that we want to make some announcements on, and I think Gareth is going to talk about the Young Buddhists meeting, which is on the 20th.
This Friday, the 20th, we've got another young Buddhist event. We were having them every month. What is it, the third Friday of the month? No, it's usually the last one of the month. But lockdown's kind of changed our pattern, so we're probably going to have them less frequently at the moment. So they're a bigger deal, is what I'm saying. Especially a big deal this time is we've got a talk on mudita, which is sympathetic joy, which I think is very appropriate following on from this evening. And that's being given by Jake, if any of you know Jake from the Sangha. So he's leading a talk, which I think is the first time, so also good to be there to support him doing that. The first time doing it in this context anyway. So if you're interested in coming, you can contact me if you've got my number, or send an email to the centre or something like that. That's if you are a young person, which I think we're still defining that as 35 or under. But yeah, I haven't checked IDs in a long time. So if you can pass, come along.
Thanks, Gareth. Unfortunately, I won't be there. I don't think you can pass. And we've also got a very special International Sangha Day coming up on the 28th, which Kemasiri is just going to talk about, where we're joining with others, but also having something locally. So Kemasiri?
Yes, Sangha Day. It's Saturday, a week on Saturday, the 28th. And it's going, you should have had an email by now. There was one sent out recently, just announcing the event. So there's a lot going around on all Triratna centres around the world, and we can all join in. And then in the afternoon at 4:30, we're opening up a Zoom link for our Sangha. So we're locally going to join up for Connect for, say, an hour and a quarter or so. So that is, look out for that. And in the email, it has some suggested events that we can all join in with together. Around the world. It's a big celebration of Sangha. It's really celebrating community of practicing together. And it's really lovely, I think, to be able to join up with Triratna around the world. So also look out in particular for the puja in the evening at 8 o'clock. In that, all mitras will be invited to actually reaffirm their mitra, them being a mitra. So that's really a very moving event, I think. An email will be sent out just before, a few days before the actual Saturday for the event, with the Zoom link for our centre, for our local event, and also in that will be the Zoom link for worldwide events. So join up.
Sounds really exciting, Kemasiri, and I love Sangha Day. I was made a mitra on Sangha Day many years ago, and I've always loved Sangha Days. So hopefully we'll see some of you there. If not, but anyway, I hope to see you next week. Next week, Aryavachin is going to be exploring with us stillness, simplicity, and contentment. And by goodness, we need that at the moment, don't we? So I'm really looking forward to just exploring that with Aryavachin next week. So hopefully see you then. Thanks for coming. And just to say, everything we do here is completely as a result of the generosity of you. So we really appreciate you being here, participating and helping to support us in so many different ways. So thank you. So I'll see you next week. Okay, bye. You can unmute yourself if you want.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Nice to see you,
Bye.
Sarah.
Thanks, Papa Saki.
Bye.
Good night.